So Wonder Woman 1984, it came out a little bit ago, but I figured I should still share some of my thoughts on it because I do have some ideas and some things that I want to talk about, and I've gotten a few recommendations for it. So Alex Games, this is for you since you've requested this a few times. We're going to go ahead and talk about it. Before I do, it is important for me to preface my general feelings on the first Wonder Woman movie that came out several years ago. It definitely got a lot of rave, and it came out amongst, I think, what was like the main downfall of DC. You know, it's when Batman vs. Superman and Justice League, the original one, had come out. A lot of people just weren't happy with things like that in Suicide Squad. Wonder Woman seemed to be like the shining hope, right, in DC. A lot of people were just raving and dying about it, saying that it was one of the best movies. And I disagree. I don't think it's that good. I think it's an okay movie. I think it's all right. The main things I really liked about it is I think Gal Gadot is the definitive Wonder Woman. I think she is to Wonder Woman what Henry Cavill is to Superman. I think they're the definitive versions of those characters. And I was nervous that he was going to shoehorn like a bunch of 80s music into it and just try and pander to that middle-aged audience who just love the 80s. Fortunately, they didn't do it. I was actually really pleasantly surprised that I don't think there was like a single 80s song in the soundtrack. The score was done by Hans Zimmer, and that was one of my favorite parts of this movie. The score was wonderful. It had a lot of redeeming traits about it, and in general, it's as Hans Zimmer always does. He did a perfect job. There's nothing I would have changed about it. They also, like I said, brought back Chris Pine, and I love Chris Pine. Any reason to ever bring him back into a movie, I'm down for. He's one of my favorite actors, and he did a wonderful job here. Gal Gadot is also still wonderful in the role as Wonder Woman. She seemed to be getting a little bit more confident in it, and I think she is, like I said, the definitive version of that character, and I appreciate that. The last really strong positive I have to say about this is the ending of the movie. The beginning, it started really well with an awesome intro scene with her playing an Olympic game, you know, with the other Amazonians as a young child, and it ended very strongly on a very emotional note, in my opinion, okay? And, you know, I'll dive into that a little bit more in just a second, but that's honestly where my positives stop about this movie. And I'm sorry to disappoint anybody who jumped to this thing. I really like the movie. I didn't think it was a good movie almost at all. It's one of the most disappointing, poorly written superhero movies or movies in general I've seen in a long time. Everything about this movie was beat for beat what you'd expect it to be. And I don't like a movie that I can call the shots moments before it happens. And my wife is there to attest for it because I usually turn to her and tell her, I'm like, this is what's going to happen. We're going to go ahead and start with the main villain of this movie, which is Maxwell Lord. He's played by Pedro Pascal, and his character is probably one of the worst written characters ever. Now, a lot of people are saying that he's one of the redeeming parts. He was a joy to watch. He was just a fun, you know, super exaggerated villain. And just because you go all out and cartoony with the character doesn't suddenly make it fun to me. There were times I enjoyed with him. I enjoyed the connection between him and his son and the development they had with this character. But in general, he was so overly maniacally written. I'm going to give you a specific example, and we'll leave it at that for now, because at one point, he's trying to like woo and get into the heart of Kristen Wiig's character. I forgot her name. She ends up becoming Cheetah, but he's like trying to get her to like him so that she gives him this stone, which basically grants wishes. Yep, that's it. It grants wishes. It is a genie. And so he comes in, he's trying to say, hey, could I, borrow that? Could I take a look? And she's like, oh, I really shouldn't. And then as he's like, I think he's kissing her, he like is up in her face, and he like reaches behind her back onto the desk and grabs it. And I don't mean he grabs it, he grabs it. It's just, the whole thing was just like that, beat for beat. What makes that even worse is that later on, when Wonder Woman is talking to Kristen Wiig's character and is like, hey, where did that stone go? She's like, oh, I let him borrow it. Wait, so you allowed him to borrow it? Why is he sneaking with that creepy big villain hand thing behind your back? How did you know that he grabbed it behind your back? And if you knew about it, why did he grab it behind your back? I know it sounds like I'm nitpicking, but seriously, this is one example that I swear represents this whole freaking movie. His character was way overdone. It was so not fun to watch. And while we're on the topic of Kristen Wiig's character, that was easily my least favorite part of this whole thing, when it comes to Maxwell Lord, he had redeeming traits about his character. There's some heartwarming moments between him and his son, and then the end is actually pretty sweet to watch. Her, on the other hand, I have nothing good to say about her character. But I swear, if another Hollywood director studio gives us these stupid characters, it's the character that's all dorky and nerdy and antisocial, even though she's obviously like one of the prettiest girls in the entire movie, and then at the end she takes her glasses off, she flips her hair, and then boom, she's either some big baddie or she's like the big hero. In this case, it's the big baddie, and you know it from the get-go. What a predictable piece of garbage. That entire side plot was one of the cringiest things I've watched in any movie, and probably any superhero movie. We stopped doing this in the early 2000s, I thought. I thought we stopped pretending like our audience doesn't know when we introduced the nerdy girl who can't walk in high heels and is just so pitiful, and she has no friends, and then she gets friends with, you know, the main character, and then the main character just neglects her a little bit too much, and so when she gets powers, she just goes all haywire. Stop doing that. It's insulting to their audience. Now, you could argue that's the point. It was supposed to be just good old classic comic book predictable fun, and that's not an excuse. And what's crazy is one of my least favorite statements of all time. They'll say something like, you know that a director and a studio are really good at what they do when they really make you hate a character you're supposed to hate. And that's the biggest load of bullcrap I've ever heard. One of the freaking easiest things to do in the world is to get somebody to hate a character you want them to hate. You know how you do that? By making them be a jerk. Write them in a few lines where they insult the main character that you're supposed to like. Oh, or how about you just get an actor that's got an unlikable face? We see it in The Office, okay? We see it in most superhero movies. It's not hard to get you to hate a character. What's hard is getting you to like a character that's done things that aren't good, because then you have to sympathize with somebody that you're not supposed to sympathize with. Even the freaking Cheetah, how Christian Wiig's character turned into Cheetah, were they trying to emulate Cats? Were they trying to pull a character straight from Cats? Because they had to know that's what we're going to be thinking about after that movie just came out. It was awful. The action was not good. It was all in the dark, so they're hiding the CGI. Gosh dang. I mean, it reminded me of the beginning scene, that mall scene. Did the CGI effect artist just forget how physics and gravity works? Literally, she'd be swinging from one end of the mall to the other in that heist scene. And like, you know what people don't swing like? They don't swing like this. They swing like that. She'd just be flying through the air, just... And the worst part is that people seem to really like it. I know that seems really selfish, but for me, a movie's badness is made worse when everyone else seems to like it, and I feel like I'm completely alone. And even though I did enjoy watching it more than a lot of really bad movies I've seen over the last couple of years, I will never be going back to see it again. It was sheerly disappointing. I'm going to go ahead and slap this onto a ranking between 1 and 10, and we're going to call this a 4 out of 10. It certainly could have been worse, but at least then it might have been more entertaining. A solid 4 out of 10 is just kind of... It's just mediocre. If you enjoyed it, more power to you. I'm happy for you. But in general, for me, I think it was a very poorly made movie. However, let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, because that's what's important. Thank you guys so much for recommending this movie to me. I decided to revisit it, and now we have this review because of it. Let me know what else you want to see, and we'll jump into that. But in general, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Later, guys.